My name is Clarence Winston, but everyone just calls me Clark. I am 67 years old and have been enjoying my well-earned retirement for 7 years now, after 35 years of service with the Palm Beach County Police Department in Florida. I live alone in a small house on the outskirts of town, in the same neighborhood where I've spent the last 30 years of my life. It's a two-story house with a porch and a small backyard where Eleanor used to grow tomatoes and roses. My wife Eleanor died 5 years ago of lung cancer. She smoked like a chimney her whole life, even though I warned her. Until the very end, she insisted that cigarettes calmed her down and that the stress of her husband's police work required some kind of release. Maybe she was right. We have 2 children. Our daughter Priscilla, who is 35 and has been married to Dale Marshall for 8 years, and our son Tyrone, who is 32 and lives with his girlfriend Linda in a town an hour away from here and works as a truck driver. Priscilla works as a manager at an insurance company, and Dale works at a building materials warehouse. I have a decent pension, plus I've accumulated some savings over the years, about $100,000 sitting in the bank. I live modestly but comfortably, spending most of my money on groceries, utilities, and occasional home repairs. My days are pretty routine. I get up at 7 in the morning out of habit, have breakfast, read the newspaper, and go to the senior gym at the community center. After lunch, I usually do chores or meet up with Bucks O'Malley, my neighbor and best friend. In the evenings, I watch TV or read detective novels. It's boring, of course, but after 35 years in the police force, you appreciate the peace and quiet. On this October evening, I decided to gather the whole family for dinner. I've been doing this about once a month since Eleanor passed away. The house seems too quiet without a woman's voice, and cooking for one is somehow depressing. I set the table in the dining room and took out the good china that Eleanor had cherished so much, white porcelain with a gold rim, a wedding gift from her mother. I made roast chicken with mashed potatoes and green beans, nothing fancy but filling and tasty. Eleanor always said that I was good at simple dishes, although she cooked the fancy ones herself. While I was cooking, I remembered how our family dinners used to be. Eleanor bustled about the kitchen, the children helped set the table, and the house was filled with the aroma of her signature meatloaf or lasagna. Now, everything is different. The children have grown up and have their own lives, and I am more like an old dog barking to get attention. Tyrone was the first to arrive in his beat-up blue 1997 Ford pickup truck. The car had seen better days, but it still ran. My son knows how to fix things. He got out of the cab, stretching after the long drive, and I immediately noticed that he looked tired. He had dark circles under his eyes and his movements were slow. Being a truck driver isn't easy, especially when you have to drive all over the state with loads and the company doesn't really care about the driver's schedules. "Hey, Dad," he hugged me tightly, smelling of diesel fuel and road dust. "How are you? Not bored?" "Everything's fine, son. How are you? You look exhausted. When was the last time you had a good night's sleep?" "Just one trip after another. Gotta make money." He shrugged and walked into the house. "Linda wants a wedding and then kids, and kids cost even more money. Don't rush into it. Life's long. You'll get there." "Easy to say when you're 67, Tyrone grinned, but without malice. "When you're 32, time seems to fly by too fast." He walked into the living room, plopped down in Eleanor's favorite chair, and turned on the TV. I understood his fatigue. In my youth, I had worked myself to the bone, especially when the children were young and every dollar counted. Half an hour later, Priscilla and Dale pulled up in their white Honda sedan. I watched them get out of the car from the kitchen window and immediately sensed that something was wrong. Usually, my daughter would get out first and walk toward the house, chatting with her husband while he carried her bag or flowers. Today, she moved awkwardly, as if every movement caused her discomfort, and Dale walked behind her with a grim face, his hands shoved into his jacket pockets. He was usually the first to hug and joke around, telling jokes from work, But today he didn't even look up when I came out onto the porch. "Dad," Priscilla hugged me, but quickly, as if she were in a hurry to pull away. She was wearing a long, dark blue dress with long sleeves, even though it was quite warm for October, around 25 degrees. She usually wore light blouses and jeans in this kind of weather. "How are you, dear?" I asked, looking intently into her eyes. She looked away as if hiding something. "Everything's fine, Dad. Just tired from work. Lots of customers, paperwork." "And you, Dale?" I asked my son-in-law. "How's it going at the warehouse?" Dale walked past, muttering something in greeting, and headed straight for the small bar in the living room. I keep some Jack Daniel's whiskey and Budweiser beer there for guests. I rarely drink myself, I buy it more out of habit. Dale usually limited himself to a glass or two throughout the evening, preferring beer, but today he poured himself a generous shot of whiskey, at least 70 proof, and downed it in one gulp, grimacing. "Dale, maybe you shouldn't start so strong," I said gently. "Eat something first." "I'm a grown man," he snapped, pouring himself another drink. "I know how much I can drink." Priscilla shot him a warning glance but said nothing. Tyrone looked up from the TV and frowned. He too had noticed his son-in-law's strange behavior. The atmosphere at the table was tense, as if everyone were walking on eggshells. Tyrone tried to keep the conversation going, talking about his trips. He had recently delivered a load to Jacksonville and met an old army buddy there, but Priscilla responded in monosyllables, and Dale was silent, focusing on his food and drink. He had already poured himself a third drink, and his hands were shaking slightly, either from the alcohol or from anger. I began to worry seriously. "Priscilla, how's work?" I asked my daughter as I carved the chicken. "You haven't told me about the insurance company in a while. How's your boss, Mr. Jenkins?" She looked up from her plate, and I noticed a slight shadow of anxiety in her blue eyes. When she was younger, people used to say she looked like her mother. "Everything's fine, Dad. Work is work. Clients, policies, paperwork." "Mr. Jenkins, he's not my immediate supervisor anymore." "What do you mean? Did they transfer you to another department?" "No, not exactly. There are changes in the company, reorganization and all that. They're cutting staff and merging departments." Dale grunted and downed his whiskey in one gulp, setting the glass down loudly on the table. "Reorganization," he repeated sarcastically. "Sounds nice. In Russian, it means people are being thrown out onto the street." Priscilla glanced at him quickly, her eyes warning, but he didn't seem to notice or ignored her. "Dale, maybe that's enough for today?" she said quietly, nodding toward the whiskey bottle. "Enough of what?" he snapped, and I heard a note of aggression in his voice that I hadn't noticed before. "I've only just started. I've had a rough day. My boss yelled at me. The movers didn't show up, and now I can't even get any peace at home." "What does home have to do with it?" Priscilla asked quietly. "It has everything to do with it when some people only think about themselves," Dale muttered, pouring himself another drink. Tyrone frowned and looked at me questioningly. I felt the tension in the room grow so thick you could cut it with a knife. In all the 8 years I'd known Dale, I'd seen him drunk at weddings, birthdays, and holidays, but never so aggressive and gloomy. Usually, alcohol made him more talkative and cheerful. "How's your Linda?" I asked Tyrone, trying to steer the conversation toward a safer topic. "Still working at St. Mary's Hospital?" "Yeah, in the intensive care unit. It's hard work, but she likes it. She says she wants to go to medical school." "Smart girl," I nodded. "Are you two thinking about getting married? You've been together for 3 years." Tyrone smiled, cutting off a piece of chicken. "We're thinking about it, of course, but we're saving up first. Weddings are expensive, and then you have to buy a house and have children. We want to do everything right so we don't have any regrets later." "You're right. There's no need to rush." "Why rush?" Dale suddenly piped up, his words tinged with sarcasm. "Marriages fall apart anyway. It's better to just live together and not bother with the paperwork." An awkward silence fell. Priscilla blushed and stared at her plate as if hoping to sink through the floor. Tyrone stopped with his fork halfway to his mouth. I sensed that something serious was going on between the couple, but I didn't know how to delicately find out what it was. "Everyone has their own path," I replied diplomatically. "The main thing is that people are happy and respect each other." "Respect," Dale snorted. "What if there's no one to respect?" Priscilla raised her head sharply. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean that some people even lie to their own family." "Dale, stop it," she hissed through clenched teeth. "Stop what? Telling the truth?" I decided to intervene, sensing that the situation was heating up. "Maybe we should talk about something else. Dale, how's your brother doing in Tampa? He started his own business, right?" Dale poured himself another whiskey, ignoring the disapproving looks. His hand was shaking noticeably. "My brother's doing great. He opened an auto repair shop and is making good money. I'm a fool, slaving away in a warehouse for pennies." "But you have a stable job," Tyrone tried to cheer him up, "and your business is a risk." "A risk," Dale agreed, "but at least it's an honest risk. Not when people say one thing to your face and do another behind your back." Priscilla got up from the table. "Excuse me, Dad, I need to use the bathroom." She left, and I heard the bathroom door slam upstairs. Dale watched her go and shook his head. "You have a nice daughter, Clark. She just likes to lie." "Dale, maybe you shouldn't discuss family matters in front of me," I said gently. "If you have problems, it's better to talk about them at home, in private." "She doesn't talk at home at all. She only gives orders and makes demands." Tyrone frowned. "Listen, Dale, you know it's not right to talk about your sister like that in front of her father, don't you?" "What's wrong with that? Is it not the truth?" I felt myself boiling up. In 35 years on the police force, I had learned to control my emotions, but when it came to my family, restraint was harder to maintain. "Dale, you've had a lot to drink. Why don't you stop?" "Why don't you all stop telling me what to do?" he snapped. Priscilla returned to the table. Her eyes were red as if she had been crying. "Dad, thanks for dinner. It was delicious. But we have to go home now." "But you just got here," I objected. "I made your favorite apple pie." "Another time," she said quickly, avoiding my gaze. Dale stood up, swayed, and grabbed the back of his chair. "Yeah, time to go, or you'll get a lecture on family values." After dinner, Tyrone helped me clear the table, while Priscilla and Dale went out to the backyard to smoke. I hadn't smoked in 20 years, having quit after seeing what cigarettes did to Eleanor, but they still had the habit. Through the kitchen window, I could see them talking quietly, but obviously heatedly. Priscilla was gesturing wildly with her cigarette, while Dale stood with his arms crossed over his chest, shaking his head. At times he made sudden movements with his hands, and his daughter recoiled from him. "Dad, is everything okay?" asked Tyrone, putting the plates in the dishwasher. "They seem strange today, especially Dale." "I noticed that too. But, you know, son, it's not your place to get involved in family matters unless you're asked to. People have to solve their own problems." "I understand, but Prissy looks scared or something. And that long-sleeved dress in this heat." I glanced at my son. Tyrone wasn't the most observant guy, but if even he had noticed, then the situation must be serious. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Maybe nothing. I just don't like the way Dale talks to her, and the way he drinks." I glanced out the window again. Dale was waving his arms, clearly raising his voice, and his daughter took a step back. Then he turned abruptly and walked toward the house, leaving her alone. Priscilla stood with her arms wrapped around herself, watching him go. "Should we talk to her?" Tyrone suggested. "Not yet. If she needs help, she'll ask for it." But inside, I felt a knot of anxiety. My police instincts told me that something was wrong. Soon they returned to the house. Priscilla was even paler than before, and Dale went straight to the bar for another drink. I decided that was enough. "Dale, I think you should stop," I said firmly. "You've had enough to drink." "You're not my father to tell me what to do," he muttered, but he put the bottle down. "We really have to go," Priscilla said, not looking at me. "We have to get up early for work tomorrow." "Of course, dear. Thanks for coming. It's been a long time since the whole family got together." She hugged me goodbye, and I could feel her shaking. Her hands were cold despite the warm evening. "Pris, if anything happens, you know you can always call me, right? Anytime, day or night." "I know, Dad. Everything's fine. Don't worry." We were both just tired, but I heard uncertainty in her voice and something else, fear or just exhaustion. Dale staggered toward the door. "Hey, easy on the booze," I said. "You've got to drive." "I'll be fine," he muttered without even turning around. "It's not the first time." "Maybe I can give you a ride," Tyrone offered. "You can pick up the car tomorrow." "No, don't bother," Priscilla said quickly. "We'll be fine." I walked them to the car, watching Dale struggle to get behind the wheel. He couldn't find his keys right away and had to search his pockets. Priscilla sat down next to him, and I could see how tense she was, how tightly she was clenching her lips. I wanted to say something, offer to help, but they had already started the engine. Dale accelerated too quickly and the car jerked forward. "Be careful!" I shouted after them, but they were already gone. Tyrone stayed for another hour. We drank coffee in the kitchen and talked about his work, his plans for the future, and Linda. He told me that she really wanted to go to medical school and that he was thinking about changing jobs, getting a job with a local transportation company so he wouldn't have to drive so far. "I want to spend more time at home," he explained. "Otherwise, our relationship suffers. Linda sometimes complains that I'm always on the road." "You're right. Work is work, but family is more important." "Don't you regret devoting so much time to the service?" I thought about it. I had indeed missed out on a lot while chasing criminals and writing reports. Of course I do. But at the time, it seemed like there was no other way. I needed the money. I had to build a career. And time. Time always seems like there's plenty of it. Tyrone had also noticed his sister and brother-in-law's strange behavior, but we both decided not to get involved in their business for now, although he promised to call Priscilla tomorrow to see how things were going. "Maybe they're just having a hard time at work," he suggested before leaving. "Stress affects people differently." "Maybe," I agreed, but my heart told me otherwise. After he left, I sat on the porch with a can of beer, thinking about the evening. You can always sense when something is wrong in a family. Over the years as a police officer, I had seen my share of family problems and drama, and my intuition rarely failed me. Domestic violence, alcoholism, infidelity, financial problems, all of these things leave their mark on people's behavior. The air was warm and humid, smelling of blooming jasmine bushes from the neighboring garden and the faint aroma of barbecue. Someone was grilling meat in their backyard. I could hear children playing in the street until dark, dogs barking and the sound of cars on the next street. The usual sounds of the evening suburbs, soothing and familiar. Around 9 o'clock, Bucks O'Malley, my neighbor and best friend for over 30 years, came out onto the porch. We served together in the police force, retired together, and now he lives across the street with his wife Dorothy. Bucks lost his left leg below the knee in a car accident 10 years ago, but he has adapted to his prosthesis and is still quite active. "Good evening, Clark," he said, settling into a wicker chair next to me. "I saw your kids were here. How was the family reunion?" "Kind of strange," I admitted, handing him a can of beer from the refrigerator on the porch. Priscilla and Dale were acting. I don't know, like they were on pins and needles the whole evening. Bucks opened the beer and took a long swig. At 69, he was still in good shape and sharp, although his gray mustache and deep wrinkles around his eyes betrayed his age. His hands were still strong, He had been a boxer in his youth. "Family problems?" he asked, and I heard the professional concern of a former cop in his voice. "Sounds like it." Dale was drinking more than usual and acting aggressive, and Prissy seemed scared. "And that long-sleeved dress in this heat, I see." Bucks nodded grimly. "I remember when we used to break up family fights when we were young. Those were the worst calls. You never knew who was going to jump you, the husband, the wife, or both at once." "Yeah. And when you see that at home," I shook my head. "I hope I'm just getting myself worked up. Maybe. But your intuition has always been good. Remember the Morgan case? You said right away that something was wrong with his alibi, and everyone else believed him." I remember. We were silent, listening to the rustle of palm leaves in the evening breeze. The air was humid, promising rain tomorrow. "How's Marcus?" I asked, remembering Bucks's son. "I haven't seen him in a long time." "He's fine. He works in Miami as a foreman for a construction company. The pay's not bad, but he doesn't come home much. Last time he came was for Christmas." "And Rosalind?" "My daughter's doing great. She visits often and brings the grandchildren. She's coming this weekend and promised to bake a pie." "You're lucky with your kids." "I don't know, Clark. Sometimes I think we gave them too much when they were little. We were always working, earning money, and didn't have enough time for them. We compensated with gifts and money. Now they're used to their dad always helping them out." The phone rang at 1:30 in the morning. I was sleeping lightly, as I'd become accustomed to during my years on the police force, when calls could come in at any time. I woke up immediately and reached for the phone on the bedside table. "Hello? Dad?" Priscilla's voice trembled with tears and fear. "Dad, please help me." I sat up in bed instantly, wide awake. In 35 years as a cop, I had learned to distinguish between different tones of voice. This was not just the crying of an upset woman, but a cry for help. "Priscilla, what's wrong? Where are you?" "At home." "Dale. He hit me, Dad. He's drunk and says he's going to kill me." I locked myself in my bedroom, but he's trying to break down the door. My heart was pounding. I could hear a muffled male voice shouting something, then the sound of blows against the door. "Priscilla, did you call the police?" "No, please come. I'm scared." "Hang on, sweetheart, I'm on my way." I hung up and jumped out of bed. I pulled on some jeans and a t-shirt and grabbed my car keys. Then I stopped and looked at the top shelf of the wardrobe, where my old service pistol, a Glock 17, lay in a locked drawer. I had served with it for the last 10 years before retiring. I hadn't turned it in after I retired. It's not mandatory for police veterans in Florida. I hesitated for a second. Should I take the gun or not? On the one hand, Dale wasn't a criminal, just a drunk man who had lost control. On the other hand, drunk men can be unpredictable, especially when it comes to domestic violence. Over the years, I'd seen too many cases where a situation had spiraled out of control in a matter of seconds. I took out the key, opened the drawer, and grabbed the gun. I checked the magazine, 17 rounds, plus 1 in the barrel. I tucked the gun into my waistband and covered it with a t-shirt. Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I got in my car and sped across town. It was good that there was almost no traffic at that time of night. Priscilla and Dale live in a simpler neighborhood than mine, in a small one-story house they bought 3 years ago with a mortgage. It usually takes 20 minutes to get there, but at night I made it in 12, speeding and running yellow lights. I pulled up to their house and immediately knew something was wrong. All the windows were lit up and I could hear screams and the sound of breaking dishes coming from inside. The neighbors apparently didn't want to get involved. All the windows in the neighboring houses were dark, even though the noise was considerable. I got out of the car and walked to the front door. It was ajar, and I heard Dale's voice. "Get out of the bedroom, you piece of trash! You think you can hide from me?" Then there was a loud bang on the door and a woman's scream. I pushed the front door open and went inside. The living room was a mess. The coffee table was overturned, broken beer bottles were scattered on the floor, and magazines were torn up. It smelled of alcohol and something burning. Dale must have left something on the stove. "Dale!" I shouted loudly. The noise in the hallway stopped. A few seconds later, Dale appeared, staggering and holding onto the wall. His face was red with anger and alcohol, his eyes bloodshot. There were dark stains on his hands and t-shirt, either beer or blood. "Oh, look who's here," he slurred, clearly struggling to get the words out. "Daddy Hero has come to save his little girl." "Dale, what's going on? Where's Priscilla?" "Where is she always? Hiding and lying. As usual." "Did you hit her?" He grinned and took a step toward me. I noticed that he was holding a beer bottle in his right hand, broken so that sharp edges were sticking out. "So what if I did? She deserved it. She's been driving me crazy for months, and today I found out the truth." "What truth?" "The truth that she got fired from her job. She got fired 2 weeks ago and didn't say a word to me. Every morning she left, pretending to go to work, but God knows where she was." I realized that talking to him in this state was useless. The main thing now was to keep his daughter safe. "Dale, put down the bottle and let's talk calmly." "Calmly?" He laughed hysterically. "Why should I be calm? My wife cheated on me, we're broke, and now my father-in-law shows up to tell me what to do." He took another step toward me, waving the bottle. I automatically took a fighting stance, my feet shoulder-width apart, my arms ready to defend myself. The reflexes I had developed over years of training were still there. "Dale, I'm telling you for the last time, drop the bottle." "Or what? Arrest me? You're not a cop anymore, old man." He lunged forward and swung the broken bottle at me. I managed to dodge and grab his wrist. Dale was younger and bigger than me, but he was drunk and his coordination was off. I twisted his arm and the bottle fell to the floor with a clatter. "Let me go!" he yelled and tried to hit me with his left hand. I blocked the blow and pushed him away. Dale stumbled over the overturned table and fell onto the couch. He tried to get up, but I was already standing over him. "Calm down, Dale. Don't make me do something we'll both regret." "Fuck you." He tried to get up again. Then Priscilla's voice came from the hallway. "Dad? Dad, is that you?" "Yes, honey, it's me. Come out. Everything's under control." Dale heard his wife's voice and went berserk. With strength unexpected for a drunk, he pushed me away and jumped to his feet. "There she is, that liar," he yelled, heading for the hallway. I grabbed him from behind, but he broke free and ran to the bedroom. I had to chase after him. In the hallway, Dale stopped at the bedroom door and started pounding on it with his fists. "Come out! Tell Daddy the truth! Tell him how you cheated on me!" "Dale, get away from the door," I said, approaching him. He turned around and I saw such rage in his eyes that I instinctively reached for my belt. The gun was still there. "Don't come any closer," Dale shouted. "This is my house, my wife. It's none of your business." "It's not your business to beat a woman." "I didn't hit her. I just pushed her a little." The bedroom door opened slightly and I saw Priscilla's face. The left side of her face was red and swollen and there was blood on her lip. Her eyes were tearful and full of fear. "Pris," I said quietly. Dale turned toward the door. "Well, did you tell your dad how you lost your job? How you lied to me for 2 weeks?" "I wanted to tell you," she whispered. "When? When we're completely out of money." "Dale, shut up," I said sharply. "This conversation is over. Pack your things and get out of my house." "What?" He turned to me. "Who are you to kick me out of my own house?" "I'm the one who won't let you lay a hand on my daughter again. And if I don't leave?" I pulled out my gun and held it along my hip, not pointing it at Dale but so he could see it. "Then I'll have to call the police, and I'll tell them that you attacked me with a broken bottle and I had to defend myself." Dale looked at the gun, then at me. Even drunk, he knew the game was over. "Fine," he muttered. "I'm leaving, but this isn't over. It's over for you. I said firmly. "If I see you near Priscilla, I'll call the cops. No questions asked." Dale walked past his wife, who was huddled against the wall, into the bedroom. He threw some things into a bag, grabbed his car keys, and headed for the door. "This is my house, too," he said on the threshold. "I have a right to live here." "Not tonight," I replied. After the door closed behind Dale, I heard his car start and drive away. Only then did I put the gun away and go to my daughter. Priscilla was standing in the bedroom doorway, hugging herself. She was wearing a nightgown and a robe, barefoot. Besides her swollen cheek, I noticed several bruises on her neck and forearm. "Priscilla, honey." I hugged her gently, and she burst into tears on my shoulder. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry I got you into this." "Hush, hush. There's nothing to be sorry for. The main thing is that you're safe." I led her into the living room, sat her down on the sofa, and brought ice wrapped in a towel from the kitchen. "Put this on your cheek. It'll reduce the swelling." While she held the ice, I tidied up the living room, put the table back in its place, picked up the broken glass, and turned off the stove, where something had indeed been burning. "Tell me what happened," I said, sitting down next to her. Priscilla wiped her tears and sighed heavily. "I got fired from my job yesterday, Dad. Downsizing. The director said the company is going through difficult times and they had to let half the managers go. Why didn't you tell me right away?" I was scared. Do you know how much our mortgage is? $2,000 a month, plus the car, credit cards. And Dale only makes $3,000 at the warehouse. We were barely making ends meet even when I was working." "What have you been doing these past 2 weeks?" "Looking for a job. I went to interviews every day and sent out resumes. I wanted to find something new and then tell Dale. But it's the same everywhere. Either the pay is terrible or they want experience, which I don't have." "How did Dale find out?" "Someone told him at work today. It turns out his friend works security at our office building. He saw me being escorted out with a box of my things. Dale came home and immediately started yelling, demanding an explanation." "And he hit you?" Priscilla touched her swollen cheek. "At first he just yelled. He called me a loser and a liar. He said it was my fault we were going to lose our house. And when I tried to explain that I was looking for a job, he lost it. He said I'd ruined his life and hit me. Then he hit me again. I ran to the bedroom and locked myself in. Priscilla, it's not your fault. Losing your job is no excuse for violence." "I know. But you see, Dad, he's right about the money. If I don't find a job soon, we're really going to lose the house. Where are we going to live? I don't even have any savings." I hugged my daughter tighter. "Don't worry about that right now. The important thing is that you're safe." "What are we going to do?" "Dale will be back tomorrow and it'll all start again." "No, it won't. Tomorrow you're going to file for divorce and get a restraining order. He won't be able to come near you." "What about the house? The mortgage is in both our names." "We'll figure it out. Right now, your safety is the most important thing." We sat on the couch talking until morning. Priscilla told me that her problems with Dale hadn't started yesterday. Over the past 6 months, he had been drinking more and more, becoming irritable and blaming her for all his failures. He was also having problems at work. His new boss was constantly picking on him and threatening to fire him. "I thought I could fix everything," she said. "Find a good job, pay off our debts, and he'd calm down. But now I realize it's not about the money." "Then what is it?" "I don't know. Maybe it's him. He's changed, Dad. He's become bitter and cruel. He wasn't like that before." By morning, she had fallen asleep on my shoulder. I carefully moved her to the sofa, covered her with a blanket, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. There was almost nothing in the refrigerator: a little milk, some leftover Chinese food, and a can of beer. Apparently, they really were short on money. Around 8 in the morning, Priscilla woke up. The swelling on her face had gone down a little, but the bruises were more noticeable. "How are you feeling?" I asked. "Everything hurts," she admitted, "but it's bearable. Maybe we should go see a doctor? Get checked for a concussion. No, it's okay. I'm fine. I made coffee, found some frozen waffles in the freezer, and heated them in the toaster. We ate breakfast in silence. Priscilla was pensive, occasionally touching the bruises on her face. Dad, she said suddenly, can I ask you something? Of course, dear. Can you stay with me for a while? I'm afraid Dale will come back. I know it's inconvenient for you. You have your own life, but… Priscilla, I interrupted her. You're my daughter. Of course I'll stay as long as you need me to. Really? Hope appeared in her eyes. Really? I'll go home today, pack my things, and move in with you. Thank you, Dad. I don't know what I would do without you. Everything will be fine, you'll see. The main thing is not to give up. What about money? The mortgage bills? Don't worry. I have savings. We'll help with the mortgage until you find a job. I can't spend your money. You can. That's what it's there for, to help the family in times of need. Priscilla cried again, but now they were tears of relief, not fear. You're the best father in the world, she said, hugging me. I stroked her hair and thought about the difficult times ahead. Divorce, court, financial problems. But the main thing was that my daughter was safe and the rest could be sorted out. Everything will be fine, Prissy. It will. On Monday, after that terrible night, I went home, packed a suitcase with my things, and moved in with Priscilla. At first, I thought it would be temporary, a week, 2 at most, until she recovered from the stress and found a job. But time passed, and the situation didn't change. I settled into a small room that used to be a study. Priscilla cleared out part of the closet for me, and I put my things away. The room was cramped. There was only enough room for a bed, a desk, and a chair, but it was fine for temporary living. The window looked out onto the backyard, where several orange trees grew. It was nice to hear the birds singing in the morning. The first few days, Priscilla was depressed and frightened. The bruises on her face gradually faded, but she still flinched at loud noises and was afraid to leave the house, even to go to the store. I took her to the doctor, then to a lawyer who began filing for divorce and a restraining order against Dale. The process was lengthy. The court said it could take up to a month before the order would take effect. I took care of all the financial matters. The mortgage payment was $2,000 a month, plus utilities, electricity, gas, water, internet, another $500. Add to that groceries, gas, insurance, and it came to about $4,000 a month just for basic expenses. I could afford it. My police pension was pretty decent, plus I had some savings. But I knew it couldn't go on like this forever. Dad, I feel bad that you're paying for everything, Priscilla said when I gave her money for groceries. Don't worry, dear. The main thing is that you get back on your feet as soon as possible. I'll definitely find a job and pay you back. You don't owe anyone anything. I'm your father. It's my duty to help you. For the first 2 weeks, she really did look for work. Every day she looked at job ads online, called recruitment agencies, and went to interviews. But there were no results. Everywhere they either required experience in other fields or offered a salary half of what she had earned before. The insurance industry is in crisis right now, she explained. Many companies are closing or cutting staff, and I don't have any experience in other fields. Maybe you should take some retraining courses? I suggested. That takes a long time. I need money now. Don't worry about money. The main thing is to find a job you like. In the 3rd week, Tyrone arrived. He found out about his sister's situation and immediately asked for a few days off work. He was outraged by Dale's behavior and offered to talk to him like a man, but I explained that it was better not to aggravate the situation. Dale got what he deserved, I told my son. Now let the court sort it out. Still, hitting a woman. Tyrone shook his head. It's Prissy. She wouldn't hurt a fly. We sat in the kitchen drinking coffee. Priscilla was lying in the bedroom saying she had a headache. In 3 weeks, She had lost a lot of weight and had become pale and listless. The doctor prescribed antidepressants, but she was reluctant to take them. "Do you think she'll be okay?" Tyrone asked. "She has to be. Time heals all wounds." "Aren't you tired of all this? Living away from home, paying for everything?" I shrugged. To be honest, I was a little tired. I was used to my daily routine, to the peace and quiet. Here, the TV was always on. My daughter was either crying or talking on the phone with her friends. The house was smaller than mine, and there was little personal space. "It's okay. I'll put up with it. Prissy needs support." "You're a good father, Dad. Not everyone would do that." "Come on. What else should I do? Abandon my daughter in trouble?" By the end of the month, I began to notice that Priscilla was relaxing. Her job search became less active. Instead of going to interviews every day, she would spend the whole day at home watching TV shows or chatting with her friends on the phone. When I asked her about work, she would respond evasively. "I sent my resume to a few places. I'm waiting for a response." "Why don't you call them yourself? Show some initiative?" "Dad, things aren't like that. If they're interested, they'll call back." "Okay, but maybe you should expand your search, look beyond insurance companies?" "I'm thinking about it." But in reality, no active steps were taken. Instead, she began to pay more attention to her appearance. She signed up for a beauty salon, bought new clothes, and started seeing her friends more often. When I suggested that maybe she should save money until she had a steady income, she took offense. "Dad, I can't walk around looking like a beggar. If I look bad, who will hire me?" In principle, her logic was correct, but I was concerned that her efforts to find work were decreasing while her expenses were increasing. In early November, I decided to meet with Bax. We hadn't seen each other in a long time, and I needed to talk to someone. I had a lot of thoughts that I had no one to share with. We met at a small cafe called Sunnyside near the shopping center. It was a quiet place with few customers, mostly pensioners and housewives. We ordered coffee and pie and sat by the window. "How's it going?" Bax asked, looking at me intently. "You look tired." "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm living with Prissy, helping her out after her divorce." "What about the guy who beat her up?" "Dale? He's gone. The lawyer says he moved out of town, maybe to his brother in Tampa. It's better that way, fewer problems." "How's Priscilla? Has she recovered?" I stirred my coffee with a spoon, thinking about how to answer. "Physically, yes. The bruises are gone and she's feeling fine, but she's having trouble finding a job." "How long has she been looking?" "A month." She was actively looking at first, but now she's kind of relaxed. She says she's waiting for responses from employers. Bucks nodded, finishing his coffee. "I see. Are you helping her financially?" "Yes. I pay for her house, buy groceries, pay her bills. She doesn't have any money." "How long are you going to do this?" The question caught me off guard. To be honest, I hadn't really thought about it. The main thing was to help my daughter in a difficult time, and how long it would last didn't matter, until she gets back on her feet. "And if she doesn't?" Bucks looked at me seriously. "You know, Clark, I've known you for 30 years. You're a responsible man, but sometimes you take on too much." "What are you trying to say?" "The fact that Priscilla is a grown woman. She's 35 years old. At her age, people should be able to solve their own problems. But she's in a difficult situation. Her husband beat her. She lost her job. That was a month ago. What's stopping her from actively looking for work now?" I didn't know how to answer. What was stopping her? "I'm afraid she's gotten used to her dad solving all her problems," Buck continued. "Remember when we worked together? How many times did we see grown-up kids living off their parents? Prissy's not like that." "Maybe she's not. But people are weak, Clark. If they can get by without working, living off someone else, many will choose the easy way out." I wanted to argue, but deep down I knew Bucks was right. Over the past 2 weeks, I had also begun to have doubts. Do you think she's not looking for a job on purpose? I don't know. Maybe not on purpose. Maybe she's just relaxed, knowing that Dad will help her. But the result is the same. She's living off you and not making much of an effort. We finished our coffee and talked about other things, the weather, the neighbors, our plans for Thanksgiving. But Back's words kept running through my head. I got home around 6 in the evening. When I opened the door with my key, I heard a man's voice and laughter coming from the living room. I thought maybe Tyrone or one of my relatives had come over. I walked into the hallway, hung up my jacket, and headed for the living room. What I saw took me by surprise. Priscilla was sitting on the sofa with an unfamiliar man who looked to be about 35 or 40 years old. On the coffee table was a half-empty bottle of red wine and 2 glasses. A comedy was playing on TV and they were both laughing. Priscilla was wearing a new dress I hadn't seen before, her hair neatly combed and her makeup done. She looked much better than she had that morning when I left. Then she was still in her pajamas and complaining of a headache. "Oh, Dad," she exclaimed when she saw me, "you're back already." The man turned around, a handsome brunette with a well-groomed beard wearing a nice shirt and jeans. He got up from the couch and held out his hand. "Good evening. My name is Rick Morrison. It's very nice to meet you." "Clark Winston," I said, shaking his hand mechanically. "Dad, Rick works at an advertising agency," Priscilla explained. "We met at a cafe the other day when I was at a job interview nearby." "I see," I said, feeling awkward. Rick was telling me about his job. It sounds very interesting. Apparently, there are a lot of opportunities in advertising for people with customer service experience. "Yes, it's a growing industry," Rick nodded. "They always need smart managers." I stood in the middle of the living room, not knowing what to do. On the one hand, my daughter has the right to talk to whomever she wants. On the other hand, I live in this house, and it felt awkward. "I won't keep you," I said. "I'm going to my room." "Dad, don't go," Priscilla said quickly. "We're just talking." No, it's fine. I have things to do." I went to my room, closed the door, and sat down on the bed. I felt like a third wheel in my own, no, not my own house. In my daughter's house, where I was temporarily living. Voices continued to drift in from the living room. They were talking about work, movies, laughing. About an hour later, I heard the front door slam. Rick must have left. A few minutes later, Priscilla knocked on my door. "Can I come in?" "Sure." She came in and sat down on a chair at my desk. She looked a little embarrassed. "Dad, I'm sorry if you felt uncomfortable. I didn't plan on Rick staying so late." "It's okay, Prissy. You're a grown woman. You can date whoever you want." "We're not dating. We just met, and he offered to help me find a job. He has a lot of connections in different companies." "I see. He's a very nice man. He told me about his work and the opportunities in advertising. Maybe I should try something new. Maybe you should." We were silent for a moment. Priscilla fiddled with the hem of her dress. "Dad, don't you think it's uncomfortable living here? Maybe it's time to go home." The question came out of the blue. I looked at my daughter more closely. "Do you want me to leave?" "No," she replied quickly. "Of course not. It's just, I understand that you feel cramped in this small room. You have your own life, your own habits. Priscilla, if you want to be alone, just say so." "It's not that. I just feel like I'm being selfish. You left your home and your life to help me. And I'm still unemployed, living off you." "Daughter, I told you not to worry about money. But I do worry. I'm 35 years old and I'm hiding behind my daddy's back like a little girl." I stood up, walked over to her, and put my hand on her shoulder. "You're going through a difficult time. It's normal to accept help from loved ones." "Do you really think so?" "Of course. The main thing is that you don't give up and keep looking for work." "I am looking, Dad. It's true. I'm just having bad luck." "Then there's nothing to worry about. I'll stay as long as you need me to." Priscilla hugged me. "Thank you, Dad. You're the best father in the world. I promise I'll find a job soon and become independent. You don't have to promise. Just do what you can. After she left, I sat in my room for a long time, thinking about what had happened. On the one hand, Priscilla was right. She was a grown woman and had a right to her own life. On the other hand, as long as she was living off me, the situation was ambiguous. Maybe Bucks was right, and I was taking on too much. Maybe it was time to give my daughter more independence. But then why did she ask me to stay? Questions swirled in my head, but there were no answers. One thing I knew for sure: the situation was becoming more complicated than it had seemed at first. Rain began to fall outside and drops ran down the window. I lay down on the bed, closed my eyes, and tried to fall asleep. Tomorrow would be a new day and maybe everything would become clearer. But sleep would not come. Bake's words echoed in my head, that adult children sometimes become a burden on their parents. Was that really what was happening? 2 more weeks passed after my conversation with Bax. I tried not to think about what he had said, but it kept coming back to me. Priscilla was still looking for a job, although her efforts left much to be desired. On the other hand, her personal life was clearly improving. Rick Morrison was a frequent guest at the house. I couldn't say I liked it, but I tried not to interfere. They usually met when I wasn't home. I understood that and tried to spend more time away from home, going to the gym, meeting with Bucks, walking around the mall. I felt like a hotel guest trying not to disturb the owners. That Tuesday, as usual, I went to the gym in the morning, then to the bank to run some errands, and stopped by the supermarket to pick up some groceries. I bought mostly what Priscilla had asked for. She made lists, and I paid and brought it home. This time, the list was quite long. Expensive cheese, shrimp, good wine, some exotic fruits. When the cashier rang up the total, it came to $230. We usually spent a maximum of $150. I got home around 3 in the afternoon. There were a pair of women's high-heeled shoes in the hallway, not Priscilla's, so she must have had guests. I quietly entered the house, not wanting to disturb them. I could hear women's voices and laughter coming from the kitchen. I headed to my room to change after the gym, but the voices were so loud that I couldn't help listening. At first, I thought Priscilla had friends over, but then I realized she was talking on the phone on speaker. "Seriously, girls, I don't know what to do anymore," my daughter said, her voice sounding annoyed. "He's always with me, controlling my every move." "Just tell him straight out that you want to live alone," replied a woman's voice with a slight accent. It sounded like it was Priscilla's friend from school, Carla. "That's easy for you to say. How am I supposed to explain that I'm still unemployed? He pays for everything, the house, food, my medicine. If I kick him out, I'll be left with no money." I froze in the hallway. Was my daughter talking about me? "What about your advertising guy?" asked another female voice. "Rick. What's his name? He helps you with your work, right?" "What job?" Priscilla laughed. "We just have fun together. He's a great guy, but it's hard to have a serious relationship with him when my dad is always around." "Why is it hard? Can you imagine bringing a man home and finding your father sitting there watching you like a guard dog? Yesterday we were going to watch a movie and drink wine, but he kept peeking into the living room asking if we needed anything." Her friends laughed. "Poor thing," said Carla ironically. "Maybe it's time to hint to Daddy that you're a grown-up girl?" I did hint. I asked him if he wanted to go home, but he's so noble. He says he'll stay as long as necessary, that it's his duty to help his daughter. "He's so clingy," snorted the second friend. "He's really clingy," agreed Priscilla. "He sticks to me like glue. And he means well, you know. He wants to help, protect, provide, but it only makes things worse for me." "What's the problem? You live for free, he buys you food, takes you to the doctor." "The problem is that I have no personal life." Priscilla raised her voice. "I'm 35 years old, I want to date men, I want to get my life together. How can I do that when there's an old fart hanging around the house all the time?" Her words hit me like a slap in the face. An old fart. That's what his daughter thinks of me. That's harsh about your father, said Carla, but there was no condemnation in her voice, more surprise. What's harsh about it? I'm telling the truth. He's a good man, of course, but he's intrusive. He's always sticking his nose in with his advice and concern. Sometimes I feel like he wants to arrange my life more than I do. Maybe you should tell him it's time to move out, suggested the second friend. Where would I get the money? I don't have a job. I have a mortgage of $2,000 a month plus everything else. Without his help, I'll be on the street in a month. Well, then put up with the old man, laughed Carla, or look for a job more actively. I am looking. It's just that the market is bad right now. Things are just starting to work out with Rick. He's already hinted that he really likes me. Maybe something serious will come of it. But how can I develop a relationship when my dad is always at home? Listen, maybe you could get rid of your daddy gently, suggested the second friend. Not rudely, but persistently. Tell him you need time to think about your life, that you're grateful, but you want to try living on your own. He won't understand. He'll say I'm not ready, that I need his support. Insist. Use feminine tears and gratitude, but be firm. You want to be independent. Or find him something to do, added Carla. Let him invest in your house, do some repairs, find a hobby. I'll try to think of something, sighed Priscilla. Otherwise, I'll go crazy with his overprotectiveness. I couldn't listen anymore. I quietly went to my room, closed the door, and sat down on the bed. My hands were shaking with anger and pain. All this time, I thought I was helping my daughter, supporting her in a difficult moment, but it turns out that I'm just an old fart who's stuck like glue. Overprotectiveness, obsessiveness, interfering in her personal life. How many lies there were in our conversations. When I asked her if I was bothering her, she assured me that she was grateful and asked me to stay. But behind my back, she complained to her friends and thought about how to gently get rid of me. I got up, took my suitcase out of the closet, and started packing my things. Slowly, methodically. Shirts, pants, socks, toiletries. In a little over a month, I had accumulated quite a lot of things. Voices continued to drift in from the kitchen. Now they were discussing plans for the weekend. Apparently, Priscilla was going to meet Rick. I gathered my things and zipped up the suitcase. I sat back down on the bed and waited for the phone call to end. Around 5 in the evening, the voices died down, and I heard Priscilla go into her bedroom. I picked up my suitcase, left the room, and headed for the door. In the hallway, I ran into my daughter. "Dad?" she said, surprised to see the suitcase. "Where are you going?" "Home," I replied curtly. "Home? Why? Did something happen?" I looked her in the eyes. She looked genuinely surprised, but I already knew the price of that sincerity. "Priscilla, we need to talk." "Of course, Dad. Let's go to the living room." We went into the living room. I put the suitcase by the sofa and sat down opposite my daughter. "Priscilla, I heard everything." "Heard what?" She frowned. "Your conversation with your friends. About the old donkey who was stuck to you like a bath mat. About how to gently get rid of me." Priscilla's face turned pale, then red. "Dad, you were eavesdropping?" "I wasn't eavesdropping. I just came home and you were talking on speakerphone so loud that I could hear you throughout the entire apartment. Dad, it's not what you think." "What is it, Prissy? Explain it to me." She lowered her head and fiddled with the hem of her dress. The girls asked how I was doing, and I complained. But I didn't mean it. Old fart wasn't meant to hurt? No. I mean, it just slipped out. I'm grateful to you, I really am. But sometimes I feel like what? Like you're too protective of me. I'm a grown woman, but I feel like a little girl under your wing. And that's why I'm an old donkey? Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to, but you said it. And you weren't just lying to me all this time. When I asked if I was bothering you, you asked me to stay, but you were thinking about how to get rid of me." Priscilla stood up and began to pace around the room. "Okay, maybe I wasn't completely honest, but understand, I didn't want to hurt you. You do so much for me." "I did," I corrected her. "I won't do it anymore." "Dad, don't be angry. Let's talk calmly." "What is there to talk about, Prissy? It's all clear. I'm interfering in your personal life, imposing my concern, controlling you too much. So it's time for me to go." "Don't go." She came up to me and tried to take my hand. "Let's find a compromise." "What compromise?" "You told your friends yourself that you wanted to get rid of your daddy." "That's not what I meant." "What did you mean?" I stood up and picked up my suitcase. "You've been living off my money for a month. I pay for your house. I buy your food. I pay your bills. And behind my back, you complain that I'm in your way." "Dad, I'm looking for a job." "Looking?" I smirked. "Last week, you spent the whole day at the beauty salon. The week before that, you went shopping with your friends. Is that looking for a job?" "I have to look good for interviews." "Did you have an interview today, or were you just chatting with your friends about how to get rid of Dad?" Priscilla stopped and looked at me with a kind of desperation. "Dad, what do you want me to say? That I'm a bad daughter? That I'm ungrateful? I want to hear the truth." "The truth?" She raised her voice. "Fine, here's the truth. Yes, it's hard for me when you're always around. Yes, I feel like I'm in a golden cage. Yes, I want to live my own life, not under your supervision." "So that's how it is." "Yes, that's how it is." She was almost shouting. "Do you think it's easy being a grown woman when your dad controls your every move? When he pays for everything and constantly reminds me of it? I never remind you. Not with words, but I can see how you look when I buy something expensive, how you frown when I meet Rick, how you hint that it's time to look for a job more actively. Because it's time. Maybe I don't want to work at an insurance company. Maybe I want to try something else. But you know better what I need." I shook my head. "Priscilla, I just wanted to help." "Help?" She laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "You want to control me." "Like when I was little. Daddy knows best what his little girl needs." "That's not true." "It is. You never let me make my own decisions. You chose my friends in school, my major in college, and then my job. And now you want to choose who I date and how I live my life. I never chose anyone for you." "No? Remember how you talked me out of dating Mark in college? You said he wasn't right for me? He was a drug addict. Remember how you criticized my choice of first job? You said the salary was too low. Because it was. See? You know best again." Priscilla stood in front of me, red with anger. "You've been making all my decisions my whole life, and then you wonder why I can't be independent." I was silent, digesting her words. Was she right? Did I really control too much? "Maybe you're right," I said finally. "Maybe I do meddle too much in your life. Then it's time to stop." "Dad." "No, Prissy. You're right. You're 35 years old. You're a grown woman. It's time for you to live on your own." "That's not what I meant." "What did you mean? That I keep paying for everything but don't express my opinion? That I'm an ATM but not a father?" "No, of course not." "Then what?" Priscilla started to cry. "I don't know. I'm confused, Dad. I need your help, but I also need my freedom. Why can't I have both?" "Because help always implies responsibility, and you want help without responsibility. That's not fair." "It is, Prissy. You want me to pay for your life, but not interfere in it. That's not how it works." I picked up my suitcase and headed for the door. "Dad, don't go." She ran after me. "Let's talk about this calmly." "There's nothing to talk about. You said it all yourself. I'm an old fool who stuck to you and is getting in your way." "That's not what I meant." "It doesn't matter what you meant. What matters is what you said." I opened the door and stepped out onto the porch. "Dad, what about the money?" The mortgage? The bills? I turned around. What about your independence, Prissy? You're a grown woman. You can figure it out yourself. But I don't have any money. Then get a job, any job, or ask Rick for help. Maybe he's not as pushy as I am. Dad, please. But I was already walking to my car. I got behind the wheel, started the engine, and drove home. In the rearview mirror, I saw Priscilla standing on the porch watching me drive away. Everything at home was the same as always. Quiet, clean, my things in their places. I put my suitcase in the bedroom and sat down in my favorite chair in the living room. For the first time in a month and a half, I felt at peace. But the peace didn't last long. An hour later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Dolores Fitzpatrick, my 72-year-old neighbor, local gossip, and old acquaintance standing on the doorstep. "Clark, dear, how are you?" she asked, peering over my shoulder. "I haven't seen you in a long time. I heard you moved in with your daughter to help her." "I'm back," I replied curtly. "Really? What about Priscilla? Is she feeling better?" Dolores was a nice woman, but very nosy. I usually avoided candid conversations with her, but today I felt like sharing. "Come on in, Dolores. Have some coffee." "I'd love to, dear." We went into the kitchen. I made coffee and got some cookies. "So, tell me what happened." Dolores sat down comfortably, ready to listen to the story. "Priscilla, she thinks I'm too protective of her, that I'm interfering in her personal life." "What are you talking about? I thought she'd be grateful. You've done so much for her." "I did, and she called me an old fool when she was talking to her friends." "No way," Dolores gasped. "She said that." "She did, and that I'm stuck to her like glue." "My God, how ungrateful. But you were everything to her. Money, care, protection from that scoundrel of a husband. Apparently, I cared too much." "Nonsense," Dolores exclaimed indignantly. "A father's care is never too much. It's just that children are spoiled these days. They expect everything from everyone, but they don't appreciate anything." We talked late into the evening. Dolores was indignant at Priscilla's behavior, felt sorry for me, and told me similar stories about her acquaintances. I felt a little better. It's nice when people understand you. "You'll see, Clark," she said as she left. "She'll come running to you in a week, sweet as can be. She won't last long without money." "I don't know, Dolores. Maybe she won't come running." She will, she will. Where else can she go?" After she left, I sat in silence for a long time, thinking about what had happened. It hurt to realize that my daughter saw me as an obstacle rather than a source of support. But maybe she was right. Maybe I was too controlling. One thing I knew for sure: the trust between us was broken, and it would be very difficult to rebuild it. Outside, the evening wind rustled the palm trees in the neighboring garden. I went to bed in my own bed, in my own house, but sleep was hard to come by. Thoughts of Priscilla wouldn't leave me alone, how she was doing, what she would do without money, whether she would find a way out of her situation. But my anger was stronger than my pity. Let her figure it out herself. She's a grown woman, as she said. 3 days passed after I returned home. I tried to get back into my old routine: morning exercises, breakfast, reading the newspaper, going to the gym. But I couldn't find peace. My thoughts kept returning to my conversation with Priscilla, to her words that I was an old fool and clinging to her like a bath sheet. On Thursday morning, Bucks came to see me. He looked worried, even guilty. "Clark, we need to talk," he said instead of saying hello. "Come in. Want some coffee?" "Sure." We went into the kitchen and I put the coffee on. Bucks sat down at the table and drummed his fingers on the tabletop, a sure sign that he was nervous. "What's wrong, Bucks?" "Listen, Clark. You know Dolores. She told the neighbors about your situation with Priscilla." I stopped, holding the cups in my hands. What exactly did she say? "Everything. About how you helped your daughter, lived with her, paid for everything, and about how she called you an old fool behind your back." I see. I put the cups on the table and poured the coffee. And now what? Now the whole neighborhood knows about it. Yesterday at the store, Mrs. Johnson asked if it was true that your daughter was so ungrateful. And this morning, Harry the mailman asked if you needed any help. I sighed. Dolores really couldn't keep her mouth shut. Whatever you tell her in secret, the whole neighborhood knows about it the next day. How are you feeling? I shrugged, sipping my coffee. It varies. Sometimes I'm angry with Priscilla. Sometimes I feel sorry for her. And sometimes I think she's right. Maybe I was too pushy. Clark, in the 30 years I've known you, I've never seen you push yourself on anyone. You've always been a tactful person. But she didn't say it out of the blue. That means I really did something wrong. Or maybe she's just used to her dad solving all her problems and doesn't want to take responsibility herself. We finished our coffee and talked about other things. Bucks told me that his daughter Rosalind was coming over with his grandchildren for the weekend and that he needed to get the house ready. The usual everyday stuff that took my mind off my heavy thoughts. After he left, I went to the gym. There, too, I noticed a change in the attitude of my acquaintances. Some looked at me with sympathy, others with curiosity. Old Mr. Williams, with whom we sometimes played tennis, came up and patted me on the shoulder. Hang in there, Clark. Kids these days are ungrateful. My own son lives in California and hasn't called in a year. At the supermarket, Mary, the cashier who has known me for 10 years, asked, "Mr. Winston, is it true that your daughter, well, did she treat you badly?" "Mary, don't believe all the gossip," I replied diplomatically. Of course. I just feel sorry for you. You're such a nice man." By the end of the week, I realized that the story had spread far and wide. In a small town, news travels fast, especially juicy news. Clark Winston, a respected former police officer, was helping his daughter after her divorce, and she was bad-mouthing him behind his back. It was the perfect topic for coffee shop gossip. It annoyed me, but at the same time it reassured me. At least I didn't look like a greedy father who had abandoned his daughter in her hour of need. On the contrary, people sympathized with me. On Sunday, exactly 1 week after our argument, the doorbell rang. I was watching football on TV and wasn't expecting any visitors. I opened the door and saw Priscilla. She looked terrible. She had lost even more weight, had dark circles under her eyes, and her hair was unkempt. She was wearing old jeans and a blouse that I remembered from last year. There were traces of tears on her face. "Dad," she said quietly, "can I come in?" I stepped aside silently, letting her into the house. She walked into the living room and sat down on the edge of the sofa, like a guest who wasn't sure she was welcome. "How are you?" I asked, not sitting down. "Bad, Dad. Really bad." "What happened?" Priscilla sniffed and wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "I can't find a job. Everywhere I apply, they turn me down. Either I don't have enough experience, or the company is in crisis, or the salary is so low that it won't cover the mortgage." "What about the house?" "I missed a payment. The bank called and threatened to start foreclosure proceedings. I have a month to pay off the debt or they'll take the house." "How much do you need?" $4,000. 2 missed payments plus penalties." I nodded, digesting the information. "What about utilities?" "They cut off the electricity yesterday. They said they'll cut off the water tomorrow if I don't pay." "What about Rick? Can't he help?" Priscilla smiled bitterly. "Rick disappeared as soon as he found out about my problems. It turns out he has a wife and 2 children of his own. He was just having fun." "I see." We were silent. Priscilla cried quietly, sobbing from time to time. I stood at the window, looking out at the street and thinking about how I felt. I felt pity for my daughter, of course, but the resentment was still there. "Dad," she said finally, "I came to ask for your forgiveness." "For what exactly?" "For everything. For calling you an old fool, for being ungrateful, for not appreciating your help. Priscilla, you said what you thought. You don't apologize for your thoughts." But that's not what I thought. I was upset, angry at everyone, at Dale, at work, at life. And you were the one who got caught in the crossfire. You said yourself that I've been making all your decisions your whole life, so it's not just your mood. Priscilla stood up and came over to me. Maybe you were too protective sometimes, but that's better than indifference. I realized that last week when I was all alone. And what did you realize? That I don't know how to live on my own, that I've always relied on other people's help. First yours, then my husband's, then yours again. And when I was left alone, I was lost. I turned to her. Priscilla, I am ready to forgive you as my daughter. You are my child, and I cannot not love you. But I will not help you anymore. What? She turned pale. You are a grown woman of 35. It's time to learn to solve your own problems. But Dad, I have no money. I'll be evicted from my home. Then find any job, in a store, a cafe, as a cleaner. The main thing is to bring home some money. But I can't pay the mortgage with a job like that. Then sell the house and rent a smaller apartment. Many people live that way. Where will I put my things? The furniture? Sell what you don't need and put the rest in the garage. Priscilla looked at me in horror as if I had suggested something unthinkable. Dad, but you can help me. You have money. I do, but I'm not going to give it to you. Why? Because you'll never learn to be independent if you know that Daddy will always bail you out. You said it yourself. I've been solving your problems for you your whole life. But this is the last time. I'll find a job and pay you back. Priscilla, you've been saying that for a month, and all you've found is a lover who turned out to be married. The words were harsh, but fair. Priscilla recoiled as if I had hit her. How can you say that? How else? You look for easy ways out, first through Dad, then through men. You don't want to work for yourself. Priscilla began to pace the room, waving her arms. I can't believe you're saying this. You're my father. It's your duty to help your children. My duty was to raise you and give you an education. I did that. Now you have to take care of yourself. What if I can't? You will. You have no other choice. So you're willing to watch me get kicked out of my home, to watch me end up on the street. You won't end up on the street. At worst, you'll rent a room somewhere. Priscilla stopped and stared at me. Are you kidding me? No, I'm telling you what I think. What will people say? That Clark Winston's daughter lives in a shared apartment? What will they say about Clark Winston's daughter calling her father an old ass? She blushed. You'll never forgive me? I'll forgive you, but you have to learn your lesson. What lesson? That there's no such thing as a free lunch. If you want something, you have to pay for it, with hard work, responsibility, gratitude. Priscilla sat back down on the couch and covered her face with her hands. I don't know how to live without help. You'll learn, like billions of other people. Dad, at least give me enough for the mortgage. Lend it to me. I'll sign a promissory note and pay you back in installments. No. Why? Because you won't pay me back. You'll find 1,000 reasons why you can't pay. And I'll be the fool who believed you again. Priscilla jumped up, her face contorted with anger. You're a cold-hearted egoist, she shouted. You have money you're not going to spend, and you don't want to help your daughter. Now you're showing your true colors. Priscilla paced the room, clenching her fists. You know what? I regret coming here. I thought you would understand, help me, but you're like a stone wall. Pris, I've helped you many times. The last time was a month and a half ago, when I supported you completely. And how did you repay me? I was wrong, but no buts. You showed me how you feel about me. Now I'm showing you how I feel about you. So you don't love me? I do, but I'm not going to be your cash cow anymore. Your cash cow? She laughed hysterically. You think I'm using you? And you're not using me? I just need help. And you'll get it. From the government, from charities, from new friends. but not from me. Dad, you can't do this to me. I can, and I am. Priscilla darted for the door, turning back at the threshold. Fine. But remember, if I end up on the street, it will be on your conscience. She slammed the door so hard that the windows rattled. I heard the car start and drive away. I stood there in the living room, feeling devastated. It was hard to see my daughter suffering and not be able to help. But I understood that if I helped her now, she would never become independent. She would rely on her father's support for the rest of her life. In the evening, around 8 o'clock, Tyrone arrived. I heard the sound of his pickup truck from a distance. The engine was sputtering. It was time for repairs. "Hi, Dad," he said as he entered the house. He looked tired and preoccupied. "Hi, son. What brought you here?" "Priscilla called. She said you had a fight." "A fight is putting it mildly. She demanded money and I refused." "Can we talk about this?" "Of course. Let's go to the kitchen and I'll make some coffee." We went into the kitchen and sat down at the table. Tyrone was silent, gathering his thoughts. "Dad, I know Prissy was wrong. What she said about you to her friends, that's terrible. It's good that you understand. But I don't understand why you refuse to help her now." She apologized. "Son, words are one thing, actions are another. Today she asked for forgiveness, and 5 minutes later she called me selfish. Maybe she was desperate. Maybe, but that's no excuse." Tyrone rubbed his forehead with his hand. "Listen, Dad, what if I help her out with the money? I've got a little saved up." "How much?" $2,000. It won't cover the whole mortgage, but it's something." "Tyrone, that's your wedding money for Linda. Don't spend it on your sister." "But she's in trouble." "In trouble of her own making. Do you remember how she lived when I was with her? Restaurants, beauty salons, expensive groceries, and she only talked about looking for a job." Tyrone sighed. "Maybe you're right. It's just hard to see my sister suffer." "Suffering is sometimes good for you. It teaches you to appreciate what you have." "What if she can't make it? What if she really ends up homeless?" "She'll be fine. She has no other choice." We talked late into the night. Tyrone tried to convince me to help his sister, and I explained my position. In the end, he understood my logic, although he didn't agree completely. "Okay, Dad, but if things get really bad, give me a call. We'll figure something out together." "Okay, son." After he left, I sat in my chair for a long time, thinking about what had happened. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe I should give my daughter another chance. But then I remembered her words, "Old fool," stuck like glue. And today's accusations of selfishness. No, enough. It's time for Priscilla to learn to live on her own, no matter how painful that lesson may be.